Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the Improvisational Storytelling Podcast, where every week a few people get together, be they strangers or friends, and write a story together. I am, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
And I'm Seth.
And we are here to tell you a story. What story elements did you guys have, or should I do the recap first?
Why don't you go ahead and do the recap?
All right, recap time. I am ready. Put my recap pants on. So, I had history last week. Reed had genre, and Seth had beginning scene. The genre was action adventure. The beginning scene was a guy sort of tramping through the forest sort of area, running away from someone, and he crosses a river that's like, it's cold. I'm synopsizing, and he gets captured, and there is intrigue and interest. Who did he get captured by? Who is he? What is his mission? I had history, which told the tale of the sort of discovery of a large portion of a ship underground, which led us to sort of great technological advancement and the development of these masks. These masks are sort of like neural nets that allow you to sort of have extrasensory information. And instead of going to space and sort of spreading throughout the stars, we sort of amassed a terribly large amount of technology. And then in sort of an act of desperation, a couple of smaller countries destroyed the information network over the Earth and plunging us into sort of a chaotic, all-out nuclear war. And a couple things came from that. I think that we're only like a couple days since that's happened. That's what this story is. And one of the crazy things about that is that because of the debris field now around the Earth, ships can't take off except on these super sort of specific coordinates. And some of the countries of the Earth have these sort of arc-like ships that they're now planning on launching, but the whole world is kind of vying for a position on one of those. Does that seem
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good picture of it.
Great. What did you guys have? I had hero.
I have hero sidekick.
I have a reoccurring character.
Nice. Should we hear about the reoccurring character first?
Yeah, sure.
I'm kind of curious. What you have to tell us what episode he's from too.
What episode?
Yeah.
Well, this is the second episode.
So this isn't reoccurring from a previous story?
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. Is that not what it is?
Oh, no, not.
Okay.
What did you think when you saw a reoccurring character?
Like a character that's not necessarily like the hero or the villain or like the wise old man, but like someone that pops in from time to time and is reoccurring, but not directly a
that's great.
Like a main story carrier.
This is good.
Right. Okay, so his name is Darrence, and he shows up from time to time, seemingly out of nowhere. Kind of to the hero. The hero, I would say, always kind of runs into him, and maybe more people than the hero. But and he always has like either a slight bit of information that helps them out, or like a bit of gear or like a tool or a utensil that not necessarily that they might think that they might be looking for it, like not in a Deus Ex Machina way, where it's like, oh, we could get this spaceship going if we only had, a 11 millimeters wrench.
Right.
Who are you? Oh, yeah, I'm here to give you this. Not in that way, but like things that they'll end up getting from him or he'll leave with them do come in handy,
right,
later on. In some way, maybe not in the, seemingly intended way that one might think.
Right.
But it'd be like they're trekking through the woods and they just happen upon like another hiker and it's, Darrence. And, they kind of talk to him and maybe they showed up before. But then he's like, yeah, just, passing back through and and here I got these extra rations. Why don't you take them? And
Right.
it's like kind of okay, but then they get caught in a storm, and oh, wouldn't you know it, like we actually kind of needed those, or so kind of a mysterious character, but someone that keeps showing up either to one character or to several different characters, and kind of either leaves them with a bit of information or items that end up coming in handy at some other point in time.
Cool. That's very cool. Should I talk about the hero now?
Yeah.
So are we determining that the world, because I was just reading that if we had nuclear war, it wouldn't necessarily mean like a ton of fallout radiation as long as we were using hydrogen bombs. So are we determining that there is, in fact, people were not using hydrogen bombs and the whole world is ruined? Because I know we'd kind of said that there was, the whole world was ruined, but are we saying that the actual whole world is ruined or no?
I was
maybe
thinking
not
that it was
ruined
more limited.
completely.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would think like not ruined completely, but definitely like in the next few years, the effects of as that filters into the environment, like there'll be pockets where, until the weather is kind of, water cycled all of
Right.
this stuff around, there could be pockets of relative, like areas that are okay. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Jericho. I think it came in like 2005, 2006.
The TV show?
The TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah. In that they kind of like, because that's kind of something like that kind of happened, where there was like a terrorist attack, and it's like all this like different organizations and people pulling the strings and making these things happen, and planning for this stuff, and terrorists and anti-terrorist stuff. But then it's like kind of centered around this little town. But anyways, they kind of have a map and showing like where all the nuclear fallout, and I think you can go online and like run location, like fallout.
Yeah, I've done
damage.
that. Yeah, depending on like the size of the bomb and like the direction of the wind, and you could. Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think that, and that's one of the reasons why there was like this like secret enclave that was then coming to hide out there. And I think it was like Jericho, Kansas. It's a fictional town there in the middle of Kansas, because it was like in that sweet spot where the one that went off in Denver would kind of go off the other way. The one that hit like, like Houston, would kind of go off the other way. Like these ones that went on, and then it had kind of like the materials and the, they had water, I think there was a salt mine, and there was like, and it was kind of out of the way of anything major, far enough away from any major cities or towns. And so there was like a lot of these other kind of groups that ended up having their hideouts there. But that was kind of what they showed, was that in an event, there's like the certain locations. And so I think, at least in a long-term fallout, I mean, you're going to have a lot of the, as we sit now, the more inhabitable parts of Earth being, decimated.
Gotcha.
And the fallout falling kind of into those areas. So I think you'd have pockets where you could have relative safety or not be as affected. But I think that for the majority, at least probably anywhere between probably 40 and 60%, which at that point, you'd be looking at, where are you going to go? Like, I think we were talking like Uzbekistan or like Turkmenistan or something, somewhere there's probably like not a lot of population, but also like, there's a reason like places like North and South Dakota don't have a lot of population, because you can't drill a well and drink the water, right? So they might be safe areas from fallout, but they're also not going to support a lot of life.
Right. Well, okay, so I'll talk about the hero now. I don't know his name. We'll call him a nameless hero. He goes by any name he needs to go by. He was born in, I'm looking at it right now on Google Maps, and I have no idea how to pronounce this. Karaagash. It's right by the border of, it's literally 2 miles from Russia.
Kyrgyzstan, something like that.
Well, Kyrgyzstan, yeah, very small.
Kazakhstan?
No, it's a very small town, like a very, very small town, right by the Russian border. He was born and he was adopted into America. He never knew his parents, but he did choose when he was old enough to sort of be reconnected with any of his family members, and through his connections, he went to college, joined the FBI, worked at the FBI for a while, worked in Homeland Security, was a quote-unquote operator, right? He never touched the CIA, just he didn't really feel like he could trust the people there. But there were at least people in the FBI and Homeland Security who were trying to do things right. And because of his connections, he was able to sort of get reacquainted and get connected with, and he flew out to this very small village and was able to meet cousins, uncles, aunts, a single surviving grandparent. And because of his sort of repertoire of abilities, very quickly picked up the language, knew the language already because he knew where his origin was, and sort of set himself up a little place there. Gave him an alibi to be within 2 miles of the Russian border, which certain security agencies were happy about. And I feel like this beginning scene happens around it because there is actually a river called the Irtysh, Irtysh River. So there's a possibility that the running he was doing is from the town, and then he's trying to cross the river to get to somewhere. I'm just looking at Google Maps here. It looks like over the border here in Russia, there's a airstrip. That's a possibility that he was just trying to get to that. But my thought is that he is a well-connected individual who, through happenstance of fate, had like a legitimate reason to like be this close to the Russians, and now something's happening, and he is trying to figure out what it is and get to some place where he can get like reliable cell service.
Cool.
Yeah.
Huh.
So let's hear about the hero's sidekick, Reed.
Yeah, I'm trying to struggle with how I would connect these guys up. Anyway, Giles, it was like 27 when he was something of a protege, in tech and electronics, and he was recruited to be part of the team sent to analyze the tech on the buried ship.
Gotcha.
And he was the first to notice the masks with the Neuralink interface, and tasked with sorting and cataloging the masks by their various functions and whatnot. He found one whose interface allowed him to activate kind of enhanced utilization of his own brain, kind of rapid input, memory storage, clarified storage, and access of data. He became kind of one with the machine. And he managed to swipe it because, like, he wasn't like, didn't think of himself as a thief really so much,
Right.
but he thought this is really cool. And like, since he was cataloging them, and no harm, no foul, nobody even knew it existed. And also some of the crystalline structures and some of the things he was assisting in helping to figure out how we could enhance our own tech with this stuff.
Right.
And he had himself built a little, he had kind of a bunker where he had his own kind of computer setup, super buffered and shielded. And he kind of reverse engineered a bunch of this stuff so that he could get the mask on and really connect up. And then when the old stuff hit the fan, so to speak, and things started going sideways, he had to take steps to kind of protect himself. And then he started getting really paranoid because if anybody found out that he had kind of purloined all this tech, he could probably be in the weeds if he got on the wrong side of anybody important.
Absolutely.
And so he started thinking seriously about hooking up with one of the ARC teams and waiting for, so he travels to the Russian base area where, and because of his expertise in his tech and some of his other things, he's working to get included in one of these Ark expeditions. But he's, got this mask, which of course gives him a lot of the trouble happen from, the big powers, kind of hogging the tech from this important find, right? So he is kind of finding himself between two worlds and is trying to make his way over there. So that's kind of the way where I see the story right now. And I have not yet come up with how he would connect himself with our operator.
Great. So let's take a look at this story. So we are saying that this is several days after this great sort of reign of destruction.
Yeah, I mean, they're just sorting out
I would
right
think
now
so.
how bad it is. As far as some of the nukes were launched into space to wreck, communications and satellite infrastructure, right? So that's part of the problem with trying to launch ships and stuff.
Right. So who do we want to be the bad guy? Do we want the bad guy to be like a military, or do we want the bad guy to be like just a person?
Well,
Just like a warlord or something like that.
like this posse that was chasing our guy, through the wilderness.
Right.
And then he kind of got like snatched, remember?
Yeah.
By somebody that was apparently going to help him hide, pulled in someplace dark. And I'm feeling like the powers that be that are still hanging on, are probably focused on maintaining their power, their own power and their own control. And there's plenty of room there for bad guys.
Right.
I think what's coming to my mind would be perhaps a guy that I'm trying to figure out how to connect these two things together. But I think, maybe a villain would be, someone who is trying to pull something off to make sure that people don't leave Earth.
Okay.
Someone with kind of like a fanatic, like, this is our home, and you're perhaps like not abandoning the human race, but knowing that perhaps from his position could come upon a good amount of mob power
Right.
if there's not the option to leave.
Right. There's also this whole
Um,
coalition of countries that launched this attack.
Right.
That would be they would feel very, so it could be the leader of one of those countries.
Yeah.
They would feel very very inclined to keep people from leaving. I kind of have this idea that one of the reasons why they did this attack is that all of this tech that was being created and all of this the world was being sort of sucked dry to create these arcs.
Right.
Especially once the masks and the alien ship were discovered.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really, they were taking things, all the countries of the world have all of their paintings, all of their sculptures, all of their art, all on these ships.
Yeah.
It's like they're literally planning on just leaving the world behind.
Kind of a barren, the poor schlub stuck here, just left to start over with really none of civilization to back them up.
Yeah. But, dressed up a little bit.
You're right.
We've got to whatever. Just as a reason as to why these countries would choose such a desperate move, And so now that the poor schlubs are kind of have to stay, now these countries are trying to sort of increase their position with the whole world. And maybe it wasn't just an attack, maybe it was an attack plus a revealing of what these countries were trying to do. So they're not just against these countries now, because these countries, no one died from these attacks, right? From the original attacks, no one died from the firing, from the destruction in the satellites.
Right.
It wasn't until all of a sudden tensions mounted seemingly overnight that people started to die. And so these countries are kind of coming out looking like, see, we told you they were monsters.
Right.
Now you can believe us that they were monsters. So that's kind of the thought process I was kind of running in how this was going to go. And this operator, this Michael, I guess his name is Michael now that I think about it. This Michael has been keeping track or has been keeping eyes on the Russian launch site, which is in Omsk, or is that 0? I don't know. It looks like Omsk, which is just a few miles away from the village that he is from, which is where he was kind of placed in order to sort of keep an eye on. It's 100 miles away. So, he visits there, or he lives there, or he vacations there. And every once in a while, he flies his stealth drone over to sort of take pictures of and see how this thing is happening in Omsk, But then this attack happens and everything kind of turns into craziness. And what I kind of see is that this operator gets kidnapped by a sort of commando group that work for the impoverished countries, right? And he gets brought before a general or a high-ranking boy, and his file is there, and they have all of his information, and they're like, we know that you've been here, and so here's what's going to happen. We are going to you're going to help us go travel to Omsk and blow up their rocket.
Okay.
And if you don't, we took your whole village. We took the village of all of your extended family hostage. So, we don't want to do that. We're the people of peace, but desperate times and all that.
Yeah.
So now he has to basically use all of his expertise to help them. And I kind of view this as like at first he's really pro the other countries.
Right.
But then as he kind of travels with them and kind of gets to know them and talk to them, he sort of realizes what they were actually trying to do. He realizes what the powerful countries of the world were going to take away from the rest of the world, which is like, it was like 10% of the population leaving 90% of the population.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another thing to throw into it.
Yeah.
So perhaps their initial takedown of some of the main infrastructure, like you said, it didn't kill anybody, but it took down infrastructure and maybe leveled the playing field a little bit.
Yeah.
But perhaps what he ends up finding out is that these people that are planning to leave, after they use that excuse to basically, tactically destroy some, key areas to, get their stories and make it that, we need to leave and all this stuff. And there's only room for 1 or 2 of these ships to go, blah, 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 all that stuff going on.
Yeah.
Which maybe at first the main guy's like, well, with this information, if we can, keep people in relative safety as the radiation is going about, perhaps every once or twice a year when one of these openings come, we can get more and more people out.
Yeah.
And maybe what he comes across with this other information is that these other countries, they're planning to basically take their elite and enough, worker drones to go to one of these other inhabitable seeming places, and they were going to basically fire off the rest of their nuclear arsenal on their departure. Ooh. Just to basically wipe it off.
Make sure nobody comes behind and messes with their new fairy tale world.
Yeah. And so maybe that's what kind of kicks him over the edge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really good.
I think we got a bunch of bad guys here, and a lot of guys acting as bad guys that are just out of just desperation.
I agree.
Because I think maybe as it sits, and of course, maybe with this happening, and maybe it's been a few days, maybe it's been a couple weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's been a few days. Obviously, some infrastructure is still on, but not. Because I would say there'd be like a lot of like media campaigns and things going out that there was this terrible nuclear strike that was destroying all this stuff, and now Earth is in like terrible peril, and there's only going to be a few people, and it's basically putting the world in an uproar. But perhaps very little of that actually happened.
Okay.
But it's being made out to seem
like it's really
like more of it.
Yeah.
What was it? There was that other movie, Wag the Dog.
Yeah, that was a great
where
movie.
they there's like a scandal with the president, so they basically CGI like a war in like Bosnia or something, that he does some really hard decisions and saves the day, and so they forget that he was part of this scandal because he stepped in and like did the tough actions that saved the day of this other like major event that happened, but was all concocted in like a Hollywood studio.
Oh, just to redirect? Yeah, that makes sense.
Just to redirect. And so perhaps, they took the opportunity to take out a few things so that people would be like, oh yeah, let's say New York is like everybody had to flee New York, or San Francisco and London, and, a few of these places that, they could expendiate, but make a big enough scene to show that something did happen. So enough people would believe that it was more widespread.
Right, absolutely.
Which has got everyone trying to then now vie for that last bit. And if then they can get them all to the majority of people to these spaceports where they're shooting off, well, now everybody's congregated.
So they'll be able to wipe them out.
Yep.
I like
that
it.
would be...
I mean, I don't like it. That would be
Yeah, I don't like it either, but that would be, something a little bit a step up from like, a cartoon villain plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And that also shows why these small countries had to sort of act in desperation. They had to do something, maybe part of the, maybe our hero, Michael, goes to a compound and meets, an economist who is supposed to be dead, a news reporter who went into the bush to find him several years ago, several key politicians who from different countries who had been sort of raising stinks about different things that had like disappeared or quietly retired, and finds kind of basically a coalition of people who from all different countries who had kind of either figured out what this sort of overarching plan was, or had been opposing to it and were quote unquote killed off, or whatever. So yeah, he sort of finds all these people and they kind of lay out this, because the soldiers that he talks to originally are fighting against it because the evil, cruel rich men.
Right.
And like, yes, that's true, but the story is kind of like deep. It's not just people being rich that makes them bad. It's people being rich and also being heartless that makes them bad.
Yeah.
So at first he doesn't believe them, and he kind of is, and then he sort of gets more of this information and then sort of comes around to this reality that, everything is kind of shifted one step to the left. So here's the question. Is Michael a mask user or no? Does he have any sort of special mask powers?
Well, I'm thinking that like Giles, that's where he comes in, and he finds out that in trying to connect with the team that's going to be assigned to the Ark that's scheduled to take off during the next window of opportunity, he finds out that his whole crew had been, he's an elite guy, but because of his expertise, but he realizes that they're just being used by these guys, the movers and shakers that are pulling the strings, and he realized that he doesn't want to be a part of this.
Right.
And so now he is, has the info to reverse engineer these things so that other people can have access to them. And I'm thinking that after having been kind of a guy that has just been totally interested in like solving puzzles and got swept up because of his brilliance as a youngster and getting among, the elite of the scientific community
Right.
and being recruited to this team, uh, he begins to see that people like him are just pawns, just being used, and he wants to be about something bigger, like saving humanity.
Right.
And but that's how he finds himself in the same part of the world as Michael.
Right.
But I think that he shows up and attaches himself. Well, like, guys, I know how this stuff works. We can get set up so we can be more efficient here.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that it'd be around where this tower was. Maybe it's in Omsk, where the original ship was.
Right.
Right. And so maybe there's a thing where everyone within a certain 100 miles from where the ship was, like who grew up, who were born within 100 miles from where the ship was,
Yeah.
have like a sort of natural affinity.
Oh, cool.
Because whatever energy waves have been emitting from this ship for these thousands of years have been sort of affecting people, and now people, so this what's his name again? The Giles, one of the reasons why he goes here is because of this interest.
Right.
And then he just happens to meet Michael and sort of make some kind of pact with him. All right. Well, I think that's good enough for today. Do you guys have anything interesting you want to add? Any story, any world building story elements?
I think that kind of leaves it at a little bit of a cliffhanger for next time to kind of figure out how this is, wrapping up.
Absolutely.
We got a lot of intrigue, a lot of excitement, waiting to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Wait, It Gets Better. If you liked this episode and you thought it was good and awesome and cool, thanks so much for listening. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a like. Give us a follow on Twitter. Give us a talk to. Give us a hey there. Give us a Waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com email. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, don't forget to wait, because it gets better.